Before we dive into all the features and functionality of Azure Information Protection, it's important to understand what the solution is in the first place. The first thing to know about Azure Information Protection is that it is a cloud-based service, and that's fantastic. If you've ever had to manage Active Directory rights management service, you know that was a pretty complicated solution with a lot of moving parts. Azure Information Protection is the successor in some ways to ADRMS, and the fact that Microsoft has taken over management of that complicated underlying infrastructure is fantastic. The purpose behind AIP is to classify and protect data. When you think about classified data, you're probably thinking about something that has top secret stamped on the front of it. But really, classification can be highly sensitive data or confidential data. It could be something for internal company use only, or it could be something that's for general consumption. It's important to classify documents and data properly so that end users are aware of how to use that data appropriately. Now, depending on the level of classification, you may want to apply protection to that data. So if it is top secret, you can apply a certain level of protection that that document can't be forwarded or opened by people who don't have permission to it. The way to apply classification to documents is through labels. So within Azure Information Protection, labels include the classification information, and those labels can then be applied to documents. The way in which labels are made available to end users is through policies. So labels are added to policies, and then users or groups are assigned that policy, and now they have access to use those labels. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you could automatically apply labels to certain kinds of documents? That's what conditions is all about. Conditions allow a label to look for certain data types within a document, and that might be something like personally identifiable information. And if that data type is found, then the label can be automatically applied, or alternatively, the user can be prompted to apply that label instead. The other feature that labels bring is protection. So if a particular label is applied to a document, that could also carry with it protection, and protection leverages templates to apply a certain level of protection to the document that assigns rights to different users and groups and what actions they can perform on that document. Because Azure Information Protection is part of the Microsoft suite of products, it has some tight integrations with other products. An example of that is Exchange Online. Exchange Online uses transport rules to be able to inspect emails and attachments. Exchange Online can use Azure Information Protection to automatically apply protection to emails and documents that flow through the transport rules, or prompt the user who's composing the message to apply protection proactively. Another integration is with SharePoint. So within SharePoint, there are document libraries, and those document libraries can use information rights management to apply protection and labels to documents within that document library. Because OneDrive uses SharePoint, OneDrive can also use those information rights management policies. And finally, Microsoft Office applications also integrate with AIP. There's an Azure Information Protection client that can be installed, and a plugin will be added to the various applications in Microsoft Office so that labels can be applied and protection can be enabled for documents that are being created by those applications. Now, in order for Azure Information Protection to function, it has some dependencies on other services within Microsoft Azure. One of those dependencies is on Azure Active Directory itself. The users and groups that will be leveraging AIP are going to come from Azure Active Directory. It also uses Office 365 components for its licensing, as well as the Azure Active Directory Rights Management Service templates. And if you're planning to bring your own key as the master encryption key for AIP, that key will be stored in Azure Key Vault, so that could be considered a dependency as well. To get AIP up and running, there are some prerequisites that need to be in place. The first is that you need an Azure tenant, because that's going to bring with it the Azure Active Directory. You're also going to need to enable the Azure Information Protection feature, and that can be done either through the portal or within PowerShell. And finally, you're going to need an Office 365 subscription that includes licenses that have the AIP feature within them.